welcome everyone for another episode of the InVisible InCourage podcast. And why do we call it InCourage? That's InCourage because we believe every day you need courage to make it through the day when you're living with an invisible disability. And we just want to highlight the great things that people are doing out there. And we're very excited for our episode today. Remember, this is Invisible Disabilities Walk and Roll Month. In the month of May, that's at walkandroll.org. We're walking and rolling to support and to remember and to honor our friends and family living with invisible disabilities. Well, today we want to welcome Lauren Pires today. We're very excited to have her. So Lauren, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, we're thrilled to have you here too. And so we kind of want to kick this off. We're going to kind of, instead of giving a bio about yourself, we want you to give the bio. So share with us a little bit about yourself, you know, where you're from, where you live, and tell us a little about your day-to-day life, because that's going to be a really important part of our conversation today.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm Lauren. I live just outside of Toronto, Canada, and I am a PR and media lead for a nonprofit organization that runs the largest South Asian festival in Canada. So I have a lot of fun doing that. It'll be 10 years this month that I've been at that organization. And I never thought I would work for a festival with all of the energy that it takes to run around on festival days, but I have a lot of fun doing it.
So tell us about why your energy would be an issue.
So I was born with central core disease, which is a rare neuromuscular disorder where I have about 33% of the strength of the average person. So not even 33% less strength, just straight up 33% strength. And I know people who work in events who have 100% of their strength, or what you would say average strength levels and energy levels, who they're exhausted at the end of festival days. It takes them days to recover. There's a lot of body pain. And I definitely have all that in spades, but I feel like the joy that comes from doing the work I do is worth it. And pushing yourself is absolutely, that's what I'm here for.
So you were born with this. So tell us a little bit about growing up and the impact, obviously, on your family, on you, and what that looked like.
Yeah, so I was born with it. They didn't know what it was when I was born. I was in intensive care unit for 2 months after I was born. I had a muscle biopsy. I went into cardiac arrest when I was a baby. There was a lot going on. Multiple doctors didn't think I was going to make it. And there wasn't really, it was a mystery of what it was. There was no diagnosis. Actually, I didn't get the diagnosis of central core disease until I was in my early 20s at some point. I was misdiagnosed at 12 with a different kind of disorder. And then I started seeing a specialist after I turned 18 who said, oh, it's definitely central core disease. And at that point, I was really jarring. I was almost kind of mad that I had spent from 12 to my early 20s thinking, oh, okay, I have an explanation. I can have something to tell people, because prior to 12, I didn't have any explanation. I didn't really know how to describe it to people or give any context. I didn't know the 33% strength number. I didn't know a name. I didn't know anyone who had it. I didn't know why. So it was confusing, I think, growing up. And then once I got the diagnosis, I was actually able to find a Facebook group of people who have it across the world. There's about 1,500 people in this Facebook group. And it was amazing to finally find people who could relate. And central core disease affects everyone differently, but people talking about their milestones, people being diagnosed, or some parents with children in the group who were diagnosed at 2 or at 6. It was really interesting to be like, wow, they will grow up and know what it like. They will have kind of a barometer for other people and what their milestones were like.
We think about it with invisible disabilities. That's one of the aspects of invisible disabilities is people a lot of times can't find a diagnosis for a long time, right?
Yes.
And so sometimes they're treated one way and another way. And there's this great misunderstanding. We prejudge. It would be interesting to hear how it impacted you in school and with your parents and stuff, and that whole interaction, because when you have an invisible disability and you're a child, right? Sometimes people think differently than what's really you're going through.
Yeah. So growing up with it with my mom, and I asked her about like how did it affect her and how did it kind of affect us growing up. And one thing she said was getting to school to understand when I was in elementary school was really difficult because we didn't have a diagnosis. The only thing we could really say was her muscles are weak. And they, like, I could still walk, I could still semi participate in gym. I wasn't very good and I never wanted to. I could do a lot of things. They were just very difficult for me. And so it was really hard getting to school to understand what I could or couldn't do, or what I could do, but then would tire me out or give me body pain for a long time, that kind of thing. And so she kind of struggled with the school administration to have them make accommodations for deadlines or for exemptions from gym or for getting in high school. I had shortened days. They gave me, I think the regular class load was 4 courses a semester. And in my first semester of grade 9, I had 3, partly because she and my mom and the school administration were worried, oh, a long regular day would tire me out. And so I went along with that for, I think, the first semester of grade 9. And then I decided, no, I want to do an average high school course load. And so I pushed myself to kind of do the rest of the semesters in the years myself. And then I actually had spare credits left over at the end and could take a period off on my own accord. So that felt really good.
Yeah, well, so that aspect of sometimes with invisible display, you can push yourself. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
hard, but there's times you can't push yourself. And I think about,
Yes. Yeah.
what it takes each day for you to planning your day. I mean, share a little bit about that. What's what's it take? I mean, if you know what your energy level is going to be, most people don't even think about it, right? So share a little
Yes.
bit about that.
Well, one great example that I've heard of is the spoon theory, which is there was someone who they had a friend who asked about energy allocation and what it's like for them. And she picked up 30 spoons and said, this is the amount of energy you have for today. And it takes 1 to get ready for work. It takes 1 to straighten your hair. It takes 1 to make breakfast. And so you really have to think about your 30 spoons. How are you going to allocate them throughout the day? Whereas people with an average amount of energy maybe have 100 spoons. And so that kind of difference, just to put it into context, a lot of my life is about energy consumption, I would say, just to be able to make it through my daily tasks. And I think actually one good example is when I was doing the rock and roll, there was a day, I think it was last Tuesday, where I walked 6,000 steps in a day. And that was because I went to work, I walked across to the mall for lunch, I walked back, and then I ran some errands at another mall with a friend after work. And I was really proud of myself because I'm doing more steps per day than usual for the walk and roll, but 6,000 a day was the top that I had hit at that point. And I was like, oh, I feel really good. I've doubled up. I can kind of relax tomorrow. And I definitely had to relax the next day because I think I struggled to get 500 steps. I stayed home. I was on the couch a lot. I was just walking around my condo just to be like, okay, I should get at least 500, get something in. But part of the balancing act of my life is knowing when I want to push things and what I feel like I can accomplish and when I need to just kind of rest and relax and feeling okay about that.
Yeah, one of the things I like to say, people with invisible disabilities, we always think that we know better than they do, right?
Yeah.
And the reality is the person living with it, they know what they can and can't do, right? It's not for
Mhm.
me to decide, oh, well, you look like you can or you look like you can't, because I would have no
Yeah.
idea, obviously, by looking at you, right? I wouldn't know that you
Exactly.
only have a third of the strength of anybody else. You would have no
Yeah.
idea. I mean, also, I
No.
wouldn't have any idea how it impacts you from I think about one of the big things we talk about is things like brain fog and stuff like that, where when you
Mm.
consume all your energy, what happens is your brain takes a break too, I'm guessing.
Right. Yes. Yeah. It is definitely harder to process. And just as anyone, kind of tiredness, when you're extremely fatigued or extremely tired, it can affect you in lots of ways. And with my invisible disability, I actually tried to keep it invisible as much as I could for a really long time. I had bosses who knew and close friends who knew, and kind of if it got to the point with someone where I couldn't hide it any longer, then I would tell them. But generally, I never liked to share or talk about it. I kind of just wanted to I felt like it was a struggle, and I wanted to keep it to myself and just kind of get through what I was trying to do. And so I only first started talking about it last September. I entered an inspirational speaking competition with a story about how my central cord disease impacts my life. And that was the first time I'd ever spoken about it publicly. I had it on my social media. I was promoting it because it was a competition. And so people who I had worked with for more than 5 years, people who I went to high school with and elementary school with, people from old jobs, like people, the most random intersection of people in my life had no idea that when they knew me, or if they still knew me, were still currently in my life, had no idea that I dealt with this on a daily basis. And so that was kind of like, it's amazing how invisible disabilities can be. People can be right beside you or working alongside you or your friends, and you might have no idea what they're going through.
So what was the reaction? How did people react when you shared? What was their response? Were you expecting I mean, think about it. You're like sharing your life. All of a sudden you're going to tell people about something in your life that you've struggled with, you've tried to figure out how to manage, all these things. I mean, I'm guessing you probably thought, oh, I sure hope this comes across okay. And all of a sudden people don't think less of me, right? Because that happens, right? We think about people with a disability. We think, oh, they're doing something wrong. Maybe she should exercise more. Why isn't she getting out? She just doesn't want to come to my event. That's a big one, right? She doesn't want to come to my event. She went to so-and-so's event. She must not like me.
I was terrified of sharing it. I had to be talked into competing in the competition. And I started out very baby steps. I was like, okay, I'm going to, I'll write it. Like, I've heard about it. I'll write a speech. And then someone was like, okay, well, just record it. And I was like, okay, I'll record it for myself. I've written it already. Let's see. I barely even take selfies or take videos of myself. So let's do that. And then they were like, you should just submit it. Just submit it, just see what happens. And I was like, oh my goodness. And so I thought, okay, I've made it this far. I did all the work. I like writing. So I think that was part of it. I was just like, we'll do this as a creative exercise. And then I thought, okay, I did all the work. I might as well see this through and do it properly. And I submitted it. And the whole weekend, I think I submitted it on a Friday. And then on the Monday, you're supposed to post it. And I was terrified that whole weekend. Like, I was just like, this is going to come out. I don't know what I thought was going to happen or what the reaction was going to be. I guess it was kind of fear of people are now going to know this thing about me that they can't unknow and will just always be like, it is already always a part of me. But I was used to keeping it so inside. And it was crazy to me that people would they're just going to know this about me, like maybe even before they meet me in person, if they happen to see the video. So that was a crazy concept, but I had the most amazing reaction to my speech. I had no idea what was coming, just the comments that were coming in, both from people in my life who were like, wow, we never would have guessed. You're amazing. I can't believe you do all this. One of my old coworkers actually said that it's crazy. I have 33% of the strength of the average person because I'm one of their most energetic friends. And I was like, that is a crazy concept. That was exciting. And then even the reaction of people from my Facebook group for people with central cord disease, I think that was particularly touching, particularly rewarding. Because like I said, I've never met someone with it in person, and I may never because it is a rare disease. But to hear the people in the Facebook group saying, we've struggled to tell people in our lives what it's like to live like this, or what it's like to live with our condition and what we deal with. And you summarized it so well and illustrated it so well. I was like, oh my gosh, finally, there is something very special about people who know you and people who don't, either way, relating to your story, but people who have the same experiences and are seeing it reflected in a story that you're telling. That was really something else.
Yeah, well, that's pretty amazing. So tell me, how did you find out about invisible disabilities?
Yeah, so with another speech for the inspirational speaking competition, it's called Speaker Slam. With another speech that I did in March, I actually came in second, and I'm now going to the inspirational speaking grand finals, the Grand Slam in November in Toronto. I kind of thought, well, my invisible disability is out there. What else can I do with it kind of on the road to the Grand Slam? How can I make an impact, or how can I use it for good? And I didn't really know what I was looking for. I was just kind of on Instagram one day and I put in the search bar invisible disabilities, and Invisible Disabilities Association, of course, with the @Invisible Disabilities is the first account that came up. And I didn't know it existed. I'm in Canada, and I know that IDA is based in the States. So I'd never heard about it before. And I thought, well, this is perfect. This is like exactly what I'm looking for. And I don't really know still what I'm looking for, but I know that this is relevant to it. And this was the last week of April, I believe. And then a few days later, after I followed, I saw that the walk and roll was starting. And so I looked into that and I thought, this is it. It was very kind of universe telling me to go ahead and do something different. And I've never done a walking fundraiser. I've never done any kind of fundraiser before, but there was something about finding that at the perfect timing and it being what I was looking for without me knowing it. That just seemed like a perfect fit.
Well, yeah, we created the Walk and Rollathon so that anybody could participate. There's a lot of times you see walkathons or maybe a bikeathon or those things, but we wanted people to be able to walk, to roll, to trek, to skateboard, to roll in their wheelchair, to push a walker, to roll in their scooter, whatever it is, because we didn't want to limit people. And that's why we even set up one that's based upon steps, right? It's not like, I don't know if I'm going to walk a mile or a kilometer or whatever that is, but I can walk steps, right? And
right.
So we set that up. What's fascinating is you talk about, we're based here in the US, founded the organization in 1996, and we launched our first website in 1997. And we were all over the world. I mean, we had articles in New Zealand and in Canada and Great Britain and other places. So yeah, it really is. Even though we've been here, we've always been on the internet, which means it's impacting people around the world, right? There's no borders, no barriers. And as you well know, the disability is no respecter of anybody, right? Anybody can have a disability. And 80% of the people that have a disability, you can't see any assistive device. I mean, you don't usually use an assistive device. You might use I don't know if you use a walking cane ever or anything like that, but so you would have no idea, right? So people just wonder why, well, she seems tired all the time. Why can't she, get out there and let's go do this 10-mile hike? Talk about that. I did listen to your speech, and you were talking about you were having a date, and you tell us about what your date. You were in a park, and what did your date want to do? And tell me what happened on that.
Yes. So I was on the second date with my now boyfriend, and he suggested we were in a park. We'd had a bit of a picnic on the grass by the lake. It was super cute. And then he says, there's a hill that we should climb. He wanted to climb a hill to watch the sunset. And there's a shortcut that we can take that's a bit steeper and rockier, but then we don't have to go all the way zipping around the paved path. And I didn't want to seem afraid of a challenge at that point. It was very early on, only our second date. And I always do try to push myself for things that I want to do and tell myself that I can do. And so I thought, okay, I can take this hill. I can totally take this hill. And so we started ascending the hill, and I was getting it. I was doing it. We got to the top of the hill. I was super excited. I was like, yes, we did it. My secret is safe almost, because of course my concern was, will I be able to make it up this hill? What's going to happen? Am I going to fall? And that will be more embarrassing than saying, let's take the long way around. But we made it up the hill. And as we start walking on the smoother ground, I'm starting to feel really hot and dizzy. And I realized that is the same kind of feeling I've had when I fainted before from overexerting. And so I start slowing down. And my now boyfriend, he can tell something is off. And so he's like, do you want to sit down for a bit? And I just kind of nod, and he sets up the picnic blanket on the side of the hill. And I am now like, I wish we should have taken the long way around. I totally pushed myself. And now I felt like I had to explain why I wanted to kind of take control of the situation and what was happening and explain. So I was really scared to tell him as I was talking about my disability, and I thought it was going to scare him off. but he was really understanding. He was touched. He said later on that he actually felt like it brought us closer, that I shared that with him, and he was really glad. And of course, he was now able to plan dates or plan things that were accessible for me. And now that he knew that, of course, he wanted to do that, and he wanted to consider me in what we were doing. So it definitely, as scared as I was to bring that up to a new partner, it was definitely something that brought us closer together and gave us more understanding.
Well, I mean, obviously, I can really relate to that. My wife Sherry has, she's had MS and Lyme disease and has been unable
Mm,
to work since she was 27 years old. And everything we do, we
mm,
have to plan around that, And she told me right when we first started dating, right? I mean, it was one of the first,
mm,
our first official group date. We went out with a bunch of people, and
mm,
she just laid it out on the line, because what happened is yeah, there are people that do leave. There are people that can't handle it and
mm,
disappear in those things. And she was having that experience because she wasn't sharing with
mm.
them right up front, right? So I think
Right.
that was a really smart move on your part. But ultimately, your energy, what you can do, is based upon where you're at, not what I think you can do. And I'm sure there's
Right.
times you're thinking, yeah, I'm going to push myself, but you can push yourself as hard as you want, but you still have a limitation that you have to be honest with, right? If
Yes.
somebody says, hey, let's go run a 5K, you're like, yeah, probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
I'll do it over a week, kind of like we're
Yeah.
doing with the walk and
Yes.
roll thon. But yeah, and
Yeah.
people have to be understanding about that. Our
Mhm.
vision at Invisible Disabilities is called Invisible No More. And what that means is we should
Mm.
treat everybody the same. That's part of your life. That's part of, disabilities are not necessarily what defines us in the sense of, you're not central core disease, but it is part
Mhm.
of your life. It is part of something,
Mhm.
and we need to be honest about that too, right?
Yeah.
I think that people forget that. They think, well, if you could only do this, or you just get out of bed, or all these things, it's
Yeah.
like, no, I have my limitations. I know what they are. There'll be times I might
Mhm.
push myself, but I'm going to pay for it, like you said.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
people that do that. They have a good day, and they push it, and then they're down for the count for like a week, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And
There's definitely even things that I want to do that I have to choose between. I can think of so many examples of, actually, I think it was last year after the festival that I ran. It's over Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And so long hours, 16 hours or so days, that I can do it because I'm running on adrenaline during the weekend, but then it takes me about a week to recover. And the following weekend was my friend's son's first birthday party that I hadn't fully committed to. I was like, it usually takes me about a week to recover from the festival. So let me see how I'm feeling. I really want to come. So of course, a close friend, her first son, it's his first birthday. I really wanted to go. And then by the time the day came, the next Saturday, I was still so sore and I was still so tired. And I had to tell her, I was like, I really wanted to come. I was really excited, but I can barely move. I really just have to stay home today. And so that was kind of sad. Hang on. That was disappointing. And that was disappointing to kind of have to make that choice between something that I want to do, the festival, and then something that I also want to do that's a full week later, that I thought maybe I could pull it together and get through, but kind of accepting that my body has to take breaks now and then and takes a little longer to recover, and that I can't do everything I want to do as much as I want to do it.
Well, this is where that relationship with a friend, you have a chance
Mhm.
to share what you're going through, right? And
Mhm.
so
Yes.
it's creating that understanding. We talk about it here at Invisible Disabilities, where when you invite somebody to Thanksgiving, for example,
Mhm.
which we have in the States here, it's like, it's okay to set up a time with them, say it's okay for them to say no, and maybe say no almost every time, right? And
Mhm.
then when they do show up to whatever the party is or the event, don't make the
Mhm.
assumption that they did it because they're doing better. They did it because they want to spend
Yeah.
time with you, right? And
Yes. Yeah.
and so it's oh, you must be doing great and everything. It's like, no, I'm going to be wiped out for another week here, but
Yeah.
I just had to do this. Well,
Yeah.
so that honesty, and allowing people and feeling safe to be able to do that, you were able to share. It's like,
Mhm.
hey, this is just how it is. And they're like, okay, I'm your friend. I understand that, because there's going to be times that that's going
Mhm.
to be an issue. So,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah, I'm
so
very lucky that I generally have very understanding friends and family. But I think it's still something I struggle with in terms of, like, for example, I show up to things as much as I can, but sometimes I'm late. And people might just think, oh, Lauren's always late. She's running late again. But people don't realize that sometimes, a lot of the time, I'm late because I'm dealing with daily fatigue and body pain, and I'm just moving slower that day because maybe I did something the day before, or maybe I'm just having an off day and it's taking me a little longer to get going. And I'm also sometimes overly optimistic about what I can handle and achieve that day. So I'll always show up. I want to show up. I'm just sometimes a little bit late because I'm battling my body with it.
Well, and I think that's great. And I think that your willingness to share this even here and how it's going to benefit a lot of people to understand that, hey, they're not alone, right? Disability impacts anywhere from 15 to 20% of the population. And visible disabilities are about 80% of that. So you can't tell by looking at somebody. And it's really up to them to share with what they're going through. And I always say, hey, if you want to know about it, it's like, well, what is central core disease? What is that? And if a friend is a friend, they'll say, tell me about it. I want to know. I don't know what it is, and share with me. And it gives you an opportunity to really share with them. And there's going to be times and I would guess in other people's lives where all of a sudden your empathy is so huge because you're like, oh my goodness, what you're going through, I understand in some sense, right? And it's not always, I always like to say, unless you've been there, you don't really know. I can't understand the pain that my wife is in on a daily basis. I mean, her pain scale, it might be a 4, and on me, it would be like a 20. I would be out cold from the pain that she has to deal with. But it is just trying to each day to understand how you value a person, right? Because really, it's your value that's most important. And that value is not based upon what you can do or can't do. It's you as a person. We call this the InVisible InCourage podcast. So what we always like to do is ask our guests, what gives you courage to make it through the day? And it's not about making it through like your festival over a 3-day weekend or through that whole season or making it through the week or the year. What does it take just to get through the day?
Yeah, so to get through the day, I think I actually never thought about it as courage. I kind of have always just been, this is my life, this is where I'm at, and I just have to get through it. If I want to have a certain kind of day, or if there's things I want to do, I feel like I've never really thought about it. I've always just kind of done them. And so it's actually kind of exciting and feels good to hear that it's like, I mean, externally, when I think about it, of course, people with invisible disabilities or visible disabilities have a lot of courage to deal with what they're dealing with. And somehow I never really thought to apply that to myself. So I was just like, this is my life and this is where I'm at. But I think just keeping moving forward is really what kind of does it for me.
Well, we're so thankful to have you on this InVisible InCourage podcast and for walking and rolling and getting people excited. We can't wait to hear about your next speech, and hopefully you'll be winning the slam. You got a great story, and it's just amazing that your opportunity to share the story, how the impact it has on others. And like you said, it really makes a difference, and we really appreciate it. And thank you so much, Lauren, for being on here.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. I'm so honored to be a part of Walk and Roll and to be here right now. Thank you so much.